Hello, everyone. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you so very much for viewing on today. I pray that all is well with you and your families and that you are practicing your social distancing and your mask wearing and you're washing those hands. You know, I've been taking some time to talk to some professionals concerning our health and our finances. For those are the two things that are impacting our lives like never before right now. Today, I have a new friend of mine that's on with us. His name is Sidney Devine. He is a life planner and a financial advisor and planner as well. Welcome, Sidney.
Thank you for having me, Pastor Taylor.
God bless you. Thank you so much for being on today. So let's go ahead, Sidney, and let's jump on into this thing today. And let's talk about the difference between your life planning and your financial planning, because more so, we're going to talk about more financial planning today. But I just want you to share with the people that are watching the difference between what it is that you do professionally.
Yeah, so I would say life planning and financial planning are different, but they're similar. So traditional financial planning kind of works with what do you have and then what are your goals, right? Whereas life planning starts with what are your goals? What are the lifelong dreams that you hope to achieve? We start with that, and then we use the financial planning to merge your life into the realities that you want to live. So they're different, but they're similar. Most life planners will say that life planning is simply financial planning done right, because without understanding who you are as a person, what money messages were deposited into your brain that will affect you now and in the future, we can't morally and ethically dispense advice. So life planning is just financial planning done right.
Okay, all right. And that's good stuff. So now when it comes to life planning, or more specifically financial planning, is the stock market the only place that we should consider as it relates to a part of our financial portfolio?
So it is a part. And I think that's when most people think about financial planning, that's the only part that they, I guess, associate with. But financial planning is much greater than just the stock market or just investment planning. So there are actually 6 areas to a financial plan. The first is your financial position. So those are the things like cash flow. How are we in terms of budgeting, right? And it's interesting because most people will just look over that, but you can invest in the stock market if you don't have the cash flow under control, right? So that is like your basic foundation. So cash flow, financial position, debt management, net worth statement. That's the first layer of your financial plan. After that, we have risk management. I think one of the things you mentioned was you talked about health. So how are your insurances? Because at the end of the day, if you got sick or hurt and couldn't earn the income that you were earning on your job, that could present some financial planning challenges because you are going from making 50 or 80 or 100 to 0. So making sure that you have enough or the right types of coverages in place so that if something were to happen, you're in a better position than if you didn't have anything. So risk management is a second part of your financial plan. Then we have investment planning, which everyone knows about that. That's when we look at the stock markets, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, all the different types of portfolio products that are out there. Then you have tax planning, which is a very important part of your financial plan, retirement planning, and then estate planning. So all 6 of those areas kind of merge to make a comprehensive financial plan. So it's a part of it in terms of investing, but it's not the whole part of it.
So in terms of people that have limited funds, that say, you know what, I just found out that I was furloughed or I just got laid off and I have limited amount of funds, what would be your advice of what they could do with what they have to work with right now?
So it's interesting. I think financial planning takes the opposite approach, right? So typically preventative care is better than urgent care. We're in a situation now where it's urgent care. So there are actually financial planners who are doing pro bono work because as a nation or the nation as a whole, everyone's basically impacted by this. Some people are getting furloughed. Some people are taking a huge pay cut. So most financial planners will still meet with you, work with you to help you get your situation. Some of them won't charge because of where we are in this environment. And some financial planners actually do initial meetings for free. And I would say even in that time, whether it's an hour or 2 hours, you'll get more knowledge from that you can take away as far as improving your finances in that hour or 2 hours than what you would if you did it yourself. Because typically, what I always say to people is we all have a financial plan. It's either by design or it's by default. The people who have had a plan by default are the people who are in the urgent care type of situation, right? The people who have had it by design, they're more preventative, where it's like, okay, we didn't see a pandemic coming. Neither those who have a plan by design or by default, no one could have seen a pandemic coming, but those who have a plan by design are much better off than those who have a plan by default.
So now that you have the $1,200 for people coming in, and they're like, joy, 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 let's go buy some Jordans, let's go get a flat screen, let's be a consumer-based person. What would you suggest would be wise for them to do with this additional money that they would not normally have, but they're being given at this stage? What would you suggest would be the basic thing that they should do with it?
The basic thing will kind of start back to the first area of your financial plan. So we find ourselves in an emergency. And typically the $1,200 isn't really going to be much for any emergency. Most people can spend $1,200 in a month, and that's just rent. Before we get to the Jordans and all the other fun stuff, that I would
do that
say,
first. Get the Jordans first, and they worry about the rent later.
Exactly, I know. But the first step is don't worry about the Jordans first. I would say that's something that you want to, again, start planning for. How much longer is this going to last? And at the end of the day, any resources that you have available to you, that will be better than if you had no resources available to you. So I would say the basic thing to do is saving that $1,200 and making it last as long as it can last. So staying away from large expenses that aren't necessary. So just like only the essential businesses are open right now, only the essential purchases should be made right now. If it's not essential, I mean, you're going to get some Jordans and wear them where? In your house? They can wait. And Jordans are rotating. They're always going to come back. So if you don't get it during this time, which is a pandemic, you can get it on the other time. But the basic advice would be save it, because you want to have, a certain number of months saved up for emergencies. $1,200 isn't going to give you a certain number of months, but it is still better than having nothing. So that would be my advice.
So when it comes to 401ks and other retirement accounts, do you feel at this time would be wise to tap into it, or at all costs try to stay away from dipping into your 401k or dipping into your retirement? What type of advice would you give somebody that's looking at that as a viable option at this time with this pandemic going on?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be a financial planner if I said, yeah, go ahead and take it. Typically, if you're retired, then you tap the retirement funds. But I also wouldn't be a human being with a heart if I didn't understand that we find ourselves in a difficult time. So I think if people are looking at the avenue of pulling from their 401k, I think the government allows now, based on everything that's going on, if you were to take a withdrawal and you're not necessarily 59 and a half, so the formal rules are, if you pull before 59 and a half, you get dinged with an early withdrawal penalty, which is 10% on top of the ordinary income taxes. Based on everything that's happened, the 10% penalty is waived and the tax can be paid over 3 years. However, I will say if you are looking to do that and it's, this is like your worst case scenario, like we don't know how we're going to eat. I know that it's wrong, Sydney, because I'm not retiring, but I have to put food on my table. Instead of taking the early withdrawal penalty, what I would advise is looking at your plan document within your company and finding out if you are able to pull a loan from that 401k, because with the loan, you don't have to get the early withdrawal penalty or the taxes because it's something that you get to pay back. The one caveat to that is you don't necessarily want to pull out too much, because if you do get let go, you will be responsible for the tax. But I imagine because they're waiving the tax, the early withdrawal penalty on the other end, they would do something similar for the loan. But the loan would be better because it is an interest that you would be paying, but you waive the tax, you waive the early withdrawal penalty, and the interest ends up being interest that you're paying to yourself. Okay. Because it's 401k funds.
Okay. So here's another question for you, Sydney. What are some of the hidden challenges that we face in this climate, and how can we best prepare for them?
That's an interesting question. I feel like at this particular moment, just kind of all the other questions that led up to this, I don't think anything is hidden necessarily, right?
How about that?
Right. So I think anything that's going on, you see it coming, like you're living it. So I don't know that there are hidden challenges per se. I would think that, jobs are, I don't think that they're super secure unless you're working for yourself in this instance. So even if you find yourself with a job and still getting an income, the hidden or, seen challenges could be, am I going to maintain this level of income if my employer doesn't believe I'm working from home when I'm working from home, right? And is it going to be the same amount? Is it going to drop? Or is it going to be eliminated? Like, I don't have a job. So I would say those are the things. And that's more of the reason why we want to make sure that we have money saved up for emergencies, because if any of those things happen, having some resources to stretch anywhere is better than no resources. So yeah, I don't know if that
makes sense. So in your planning strategy that you use, what is the minimum amount that one should put aside for investments or some of the other avenues by which a person can start their financial health? You say, okay, 10% of your income, 5% of your income. What would be the percentage, the general percentage rate or the amount, to make it really simple, that you would say by bare minimum every month, you should be putting aside X amount of dollars? What would that be?
Yeah, so that's I don't like general. So I'm specific. I'm like super numbers oriented, detailed oriented. So you hire me, I give you specificity, not generalities.
Yeah.
So I would say the first step basically would be to get your emergency reserves up. And before we even worry about investing, because at the end of the day, yes, you may want to invest, but if we are looking at our bank account and it's just like all the bills are still happening, so the bank accounts are still going, you're not necessarily going to invest. So I would say the first step would be getting your emergency savings up. So the first thing is, if you're married, both of you have jobs, 3 months is reasonable. If your job situation is iffy, I would say 6 months, but it's individual. I mean, there are some people who prefer to have a year's worth of savings, and you have to think about it from that standpoint. So there are clients who, if they were to get furloughed, if they were to lose their jobs completely, they have enough saved up for 9 months worth of expenses, right? So thinking from, where you are individually, it's like, pandemic is over with and we're trying to prepare for the future, whatever may come, right? Being that I went through that, I feel like life gives us lessons. Being as though I went through the pandemic of 2020, now we're on the other side. I don't necessarily want to be in this situation again. What's a comfortable amount to say, you know what, I would have grown, I would have learned from 2020 if I have this amount? Start there and then build it, because everyone's answer will be different. Everyone's plan is different.
Yes.
So I don't know if that answered it.
That makes a lot of sense, because everybody's in a different financial bracket, and everybody's mindset about saving is totally different, where somebody will say, 3 months of savings that would be able to last me would be a good start. For somebody said, listen, I got to stick with a month right now. Let me just start there. And for somebody that says, okay, I can do a 6 months to a year plan of doing that. And so, yes, that definitely makes sense to me, that it's vitally important for you to know where you are in your finances, and what you can do, not looking for the today, but looking for the tomorrow and the next week, because we understand that financial planning and life planning is not a destination, it's a journey. And it's something we're always going to be doing. And there is no finish line to this, because when you cross the finish line, you're dead. So.
And true, because most people would think that, oh, well, you have clients and they're all working. And then what happens when they retire? Because that's a huge goal. Clients hire me because they want to get to retirement. But I actually have clients who are retired and they're still clients. Why? Because it is a journey until you're no longer here. Because even if you are super, super wealthy, there are things that you're going through throughout this pandemic that a financial planner can help with. If you're not wealthy, on the opposite end of the scale, there are things that a financial planner can help with. So I would second what you just said, Pastor Taylor.
Okay, great. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Sydney Devine, life planner, financial advisor, and financial planner. Sydney, could you give everyone that's watching your website of how, if they want to get in contact with you to start this process of life planning or financial planning, could you give them that information so they can start getting into a healthy place with their finances?
Yeah, so I offer discovery meetings free of charge because I see it as a way of kind of getting to know you. And ultimately, I feel like this is what God placed me on earth for, one of the things. So my whole thing is to leave you better than what I found you, even if you don't become a client. And ultimately, I know that I can do that even in an hour of talking to you. So if you search Sydney Devine, I think my name still shows on the Zoom, SIDNEY, I will come up. I'm the only one of those Sydney Devines out there. And the website is Divine, my last name, wealthstrategies.com. So that's basically it.
Sydney Devine Wealth Strategies.
DivineWealthStrategies.com. Yeah. And Divine is my actual last name because I know some people will think about that. Like, I wonder if that's his real last name. It is. So, yeah.
Divinely ordered.
Yeah, and the company, so I'm a Christian, so it's a double entendre. Divine's my last name, and I believe in God. So it just worked out perfectly. I thank my parents.
Wonderful.
I guess.
Once again, Sydney, thank you so much. And you know what, you all? We are in the mode of empowerment. Our ministry finds its resting place on a foundation of empowerment. Preaching is good. Giving the word is good. But you know what? The Bible does say faith without works or corresponding action is unproductive. Well, that's all the time that we have today. And we're going to be bringing you some more professionals to help you on this journey to your success. Have a wonderful day, ladies and gentlemen. We love you, and we'll see you the next time. And be safe out there. Be safe. Bye-bye.